Hello and welcome to God and Country. Hope you guys are having a fabulous beginning to 2025. Reed Cooley, sir, how are you doing?
Dan, I've got to tell you, just based on things that have happened today, I'm blessed, man. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. We are obviously kicking off this brand new year, 2025. This is our very first episode in 2025 as far as God and Country is concerned. And so I'm looking forward to this show, but I'm also looking forward to many more shows leading into 2025 here on our blessed God and Country. So Reed, you told me you had a good story to tell, and so I want to jump right into that story.
Yeah, so just with everything going on over the last several weeks, I've told you work has kept me so busy. Same thing with you, but there was something that happened today, which was kind of a breakthrough. So today was my first day really getting back, working a full 8-hour shift over the last week and a half or so, just because of the holiday break. But last week, my pastor, Father Mark Ropel up in Hattiesburg, he gave a sermon, and it's something that has stuck with me. He said that whenever you wake up in the morning, just make a habit out of asking God to be a part of your day that day. And then before you go to bed, ask the Holy Spirit to show you your day. Meaning, just ask the Holy Spirit to show you, what you did right, maybe what you did wrong, things like that, right? Just to do a basic kind of analysis of your day. I'll tell you that, yesterday I got back into that habit. I fell out of that habit, unfortunately, for a little over a week of remembering to pray. But yesterday kind of clicked with me again. Oh, wow, that's what I should have done over Christmas. Well, today I stopped at a coffee shop in Hattiesburg as I was making the long trip from Laurel down here to Gulfport. Stopped in Hattiesburg for a couple of hours, and I don't know what happened, but there was this girl working at the coffee shop. Looked like she was maybe 19, 20. She just asked me out of the blue, "Reed, do you go to church?" I wasn't church wasn't even in the conversation. She just asked me, "Reed, do you go to church?" And I got an opportunity just to talk to this girl for probably 20, 30 minutes, just about Jesus, about some theological questions, about things that I really think she was able to take away, things she genuinely found interesting. And it was a surprise. We were talking about all these other random topics prior to that point, and then she just sprang the question on me, "Reed, do you go to church?" So, just as we go into God and Country here a couple of hours after, that encounter, I thank God for that. I think that was really a highlight of my day, something that I'm grateful for.
One thing that is special about God and Country is, if you've been watching our show for any amount of time here on God and Country, we talk a lot about our country. We talk a lot about our nation. And of course, in 2024, we really talked and focused on the election in November, of course, being probably, in my opinion, the most important election, at least in my lifetime. But then we also talk about God a lot. And we talk about, having God a part of our everyday life, here on God and Country. So Reed, to hear that story, man, that is remarkable that you're in a gas station.
No, a coffee shop.
In
Hattiesburg, yep.
A coffee shop, and someone comes up to you out of the blue just asking, about that's remarkable. That is awesome. And then be able to go to share your faith,
yep.
Which is so important. I wrote an article. Matter of fact, I wrote it today. Excuse me. And I put it out on my website. But it was about Christians being involved, obviously, in the political process, but then also Christians being involved in their church, because I believe it's important to be involved in both. I believe that you and I, as Christians, I believe that we are to be involved in our church. I believe that we're to be involved in the political process. And Reed, I think we are to be involved in our families. I think it's so vital, important, and unfortunately, so many people have vacated their roles. You have dads that have vacated their role as a dad in the home. You have mothers who have vacated their role as a mother in the home. And you have a lot of Christians that have vacated their role as far as what they're supposed to be doing as a Christian in their church. And then you have a lot of Christians that have vacated their role in government. And so to hear about this young girl coming up and asking, in a coffee shop, that says a lot about her, but it also says a lot about your testimony, and how God is using you, to get out, to get out that message, of salvation. I want to go ahead now and apologize. I'm going to cough a little bit. I've had the flu, and of course, after that, dealing with my asthma, it causes me to cough, and we could edit out every single cough, but it would be a lot of editing, and so I want to go ahead and apologize. But I do want to say that is what God and Country, is is really all about. It's all about our faith. It's about our walk with God. And it's also about our country, which I believe, is so very important. Reed, today was the kickoff date, for people to sign up to run for office in their city. It started today, and it goes all the way through this month of January, and it goes through January 31st. And so every city is going to have an election for mayor, is going to have an election for your council, and it depends on what type of city you have. It could either be councilman or alderman, but every single city. And there are a lot of cities in Mississippi. And so every one of those seats for mayor, for councilman, for alderman is going to be up for election. And Reed, this is a really good opportunity. We talk about this a lot on God and Country, but I think we ought to be involved in the national politics. I think we ought to know what's happening in Washington, D.C. I think we ought to know what's going on, in the Capitol as far as voting on for a congressman, for a United States senator. I think it's important that we vote for, the president, whenever it is back to the state races as far as voting in our governors and attorney generals and those type of things. But Reed, you can't get really more close to home as far as local politics than your councilman, alderman, or mayor. And right now we have the opportunity. And if you're watching this show, and if you've got just a little tug on your heart about running for office, I want to encourage you to, let's have a conversation, and reach out to us, and let's have a conversation about you running for office, and let's see where you line up, with certain issues. But we need more people to get involved locally, right there, in your city. And it doesn't matter what city, Gulfport, Long Beach, Pasco, Cheyenne, Ocean Springs, Hattiesburg, Walls, Mississippi. You just named the city. And so we need to be involved, and we need to be engaged. And so if you're looking to run for office, now is a really good opportunity. If you're looking to get involved, right now it's a really good opportunity, because you can't get more local. Reed, would you agree that you can't really get more local whenever you look at your city and your council and mayor race?
Well, the only form of government that's more local than that is the family. So I guess, you're right.
Yeah, and so I want to encourage you to get involved and get engaged and know what's happening. People are going to be putting out their statement of intent, and so they're going to be filling out that paperwork. They're going to be taking it to the municipal clerk and getting it signed and getting their bank accounts open and getting their Facebook pages going and getting their websites going. And all of those things are going to be taking place over the next several weeks, and many have already been working toward that. They're going to be getting campaign signs ordered. Get involved, get engaged, and maybe even you should think about possibly, running for office. Those of you that are watching, this show. Reed, what is something that someone ought to be looking for whenever it comes to running for office? Just give me maybe 2 or 3 things, that someone ought to be looking for in a candidate, because, we have a lot of people, that tune into God and Country, and they'll tune in and they'll watch the show, and some of them maybe not know what they need to look for as far as, a councilman or a mayor. What is something that they should look for?
Well, regardless of what office it is they're running for specifically, I would ask them the question, what does it mean to be a constitutional mayor, for example? If they're running for mayor or city councilman or alderman, or let's say we take it to one of the upper levels of government, such as the state government. Maybe they're running for governor, or they're running for your state rep or for your state senator. Ask them the question, what does it mean to be a constitutional governor? What does it mean to be a constitutional state rep or a constitutional mayor? Because whenever it comes to tyrannical edicts from the upper levels of government, we need people who are brave enough and principled enough on the lower levels, the more local levels of government, so to speak, to nullify those kinds of unconstitutional and tyrannical acts. So that's one thing I would focus on. If you get a chance to talk to whoever this candidate is running for your mayor, for example, make an opportunity to really pick that person's brain about the Constitution, what they know about the Constitution. Don't quiz them necessarily on every article and every clause or anything like that, but get a broad understanding as to how they really envision the Constitution, so on and so forth. That's one thing I would recommend. As I told you last time we were together, I've actually worked on a couple of campaigns, not here in Mississippi necessarily, but in other states for mayor, for very local offices such as this. And something that I've seen is you get people who are going to run for mayor. They run for mayor on a campaign of no taxes. And then what do once they're 1 or 2 years in there? They start to compromise with their city councils. They start to compromise with the county government, whatever it is. They really begin to give away on some of those campaign promises. I don't know that you really correct for something like that. I mean, that seems to be kind of an inevitability with 99.9% of your politicians. But I would make sure just to remind these people they work for us. And beyond that, I would also just really pick their brain on their philosophy about, make sure they commit to no new taxes of some sort. And I see taxes raised for all kinds of ridiculous reasons by people who get elected to mayor or city council, even by the most libertarian or just constitutionally conservative candidates you can imagine for these local offices. So that's something that I would do is, just pick their brain about the Constitution, really just however long it takes you, however much time you have to get an understanding as to what they believe it means to be a constitutional mayor or whatever other kind of office they're running for, and really, just hold their feet to the fire whenever it comes to no new taxes in your county.
Reed, something that I talk about often, and I preach this every single time I get on our podcast, and that is your vote counts. And I try to get this message out as much as any other message that we preach. And it's because I want people to understand and realize that your vote does count. Back in 2016, whenever we elected President Donald Trump for the first time against Hillary Clinton, there was so many Christians that came out and voted, and people came out and voted. And then in 2020, a lot of Christians, they backed off and they didn't vote. And then, we believe that election, was stolen. And then a lot of people were saying, well, our vote just doesn't count. We're not going to vote. And I'm so thankful that many people overcome that and got back out and voted in 2024. But something that we need to understand and realize even in 2025, and that is that your vote counts. And even more on a local level. Whenever you're looking at a council race or an alderman race, you can really win some of these races with 250 to 300 votes. I mean, and so all you have to do is, start knocking on doors and get you a list, from the circuit clerk's office of people that have voted in the past in like the last 2 or 3 elections, and start going to their houses in your ward and in your district and start talking to people. And start taking notes of people that will come out and vote for you and get their phone number. And then as you get closer to election, send them a text message and remind them, to go to the polls and vote. I mean, you can literally win with 250 to 300 votes. I was looking at some of these races from back in 4 years ago, and some people won with like 140 votes. They won the primary, and in a lot of these cities, the primary is the election. Right? I mean, there's no Democrat running, really against the Republican, or there's no Republican running against a Democrat, depending on, the city. And so a lot of these elections are won on primary. And so, which is going to be April the 1st will be the primary election. And so, man, your vote does count. And so let's make sure that we are getting behind and we are supporting good, strong candidates here in 2025 for council, for alderman, for mayor, because, ladies and gentlemen, your vote counts, and you don't want to get the wrong person in office. You get the wrong person in, like Reed was talking about, your taxes potentially are going to get raised. There's going to be things happen in your city that you're not going to like. And so that's why it's so important for you to get involved and you to get engaged. And that is one thing that here on God and Country, that is one thing that we talk about religiously. And that is you getting involved, you being engaged, what's happening in your city, because it's very, very important. And so that's obviously one of the things that we preach and that we talk about. I know, Reed, that many of us have been watching, especially since New Year's Day on January 1. It would have been this past Wednesday morning early. There was this gentleman who turned onto Bourbon Street in his truck, and he was driving his truck at a very high speed, and he hit a lift is what he hit. And whenever he hit this lift, it's whenever it kind of stopped him. And here you have a picture, of this guy, his truck, and right where he hit this lift, driving down Bourbon Street. And of course, this is after the fact of him getting out of his vehicle and shooting people. And he shot, I believe now, Reed, the death toll is up to 15 people. 15 people have lost their life. Close to 40 people have been injured due to this terrorist attack. Listen, I know that I've seen a lot of news come out about this since that happened. And there's some news media obviously trying to downplay it, trying not to call it. They don't want to call it a terrorist attack. They don't want to call it what it is, and it is obviously, a terrorist attack. And they don't want to call it that. And because it'll look bad, obviously for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But we've got to get beyond. We're talking about people's life, Reed. We're talking about people died early Wednesday morning, I guess around 3:30 in the morning. Yeah, people died. Reed, I have watched a lot of videos of the shooting that was taking place, people running in the streets, hollering and screaming. I mean, I even shared one on my social media, of this person that was shot. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Reed, whenever I see all of that and I see what's happening take place, and I put a video out yesterday talking about this, and a lot of news reports have come out since. There's been all kind of news coming about this guy, who created and caused all these problems. Long story short, he was radicalized by ISIS. Some of the news reports that I've seen. He grew up in Texas. He lived in Houston. He drove from Houston to New Orleans. He had put some stuff out on social media. He had all the kind of weapons, and he killed 15 people. One young girl, she was 18 years old. She had just graduated from Harrison Central High School. She was there, and she got killed. She graduated from right here in Gulfport, Mississippi. So when you see all of this, Reed, when I see this guy that's been radicalized by ISIS, driving down Bourbon Street, killing people, there are several things that run through my mind whenever I see pictures like this, because I believe that stuff like this, I believe that if we're doing things properly here in America, I believe that there are some things that can be avoided. When you look at the borders, and you have these open borders and people just flooding across the borders. And here's what people will say, because I've had some people say this on my last video. They said, well, he didn't come, he grew up here, and so he didn't come from another country. But Reed, who radicalized this guy? People from other countries. Who radicalized this? And he was a Muslim, and I'm not saying that all Muslims are terrorists. I'm not saying that. That is not what I'm saying. But it was a Muslim that radicalized this guy. People coming here from other countries that we don't vet, and we just let any and everybody come in across those borders. And Joe Biden's policy for the last 4 years has been open borders, basically. And that seems to be the Democrats, it seems to be their rallying cry is open borders. And so whenever I see all of these people coming across, and then this happens, and the people want to say, well, it didn't happen because of open borders because, he's from here. This guy is radicalized by people that are coming here because we are not vetting some of these people that are coming across our borders. And to Reed, whenever I see stuff like this happen, one of my things that I say, and I put it out immediately, was this is why we've been saying for the last many years we need to close the borders. We cannot have open borders and people just coming across those borders without vetting them. We have to shut down these borders. Now you might disagree with me. People that are watching might disagree, but I think that our borders, if we're going to keep America safe, we have to have a strong vetting process and vetting these people that are coming in from other countries. And I believe that wholeheartedly, 100%.
Yes, and I'm not actually certain whether, and I'm not, is it confirmed right now that the perpetrator of the New Orleans attack was actually born here in the U.S. and raised here, or is it still somewhat dubious? Because I'm seeing conflicting reports on this one. I don't know about that, but regardless, either way, whether he was born here or whether he did come over our border, as I've also seen claimed, it still touches on a toxic and deadly over-tolerance that our country has developed for these sort of radical terroristic ideas that I think you're talking about here, right? It's not just, we don't just have a literal open border where we're allowing millions of people to pour in our country. We're also allowing just too many toxic and evil ideologies to come into this country, but also to come to fruition within this country. I think that's absolutely valid, Dan. I think that you are making a good connection there. One more thing worth mentioning, we were just talking about the importance of local leadership. I think that lesson applies to the horror that just took place in New Orleans, because one question that I have had ever since more details of this attack surfaced are why wasn't Bourbon Street barricaded off? Now, I'm I've been to Bourbon Street maybe twice my whole life. I think the last time I went there was during broad daylight, just to be clear, and it was over a decade ago. But even I know that Bourbon Street is barricaded off at certain hours to keep people from just driving through. You can't just drive through Bourbon Street as all those people are going and doing whatever they're doing on Bourbon Street. I thought to myself, why wasn't the road barricaded like I know that it normally is? I did a little bit of digging on this, and I found some local news sources reporting stories from over the last few months that they reported that the reason the barricades weren't up is because those barricades are currently under construction. And I thought to myself, well, why? Okay, I get that the barricades are under construction or whatever. These metal barricades that come out of the ground, they're under construction. Okay, fine. But why wasn't the road secured in some sort of way as these barricades were being updated? I thought to myself, well, that is absolutely something for which the mayor should be held accountable, and any city councilors who are responsible for leaving Bourbon Street open and vulnerable to an attack like this. That's not just grasping for straws and looking for a reason to attack some politician somewhere. I think that whenever you have a mayor and a city council who just through negligence, what I can only describe as negligence, failed to protect a highly vulnerable street like Bourbon Street like this, they completely overlook securing that street, and then something like this happens, 15 people killed, dozens others injured. I think that's a legitimate criticism of this mayor. Mayor LaToya Cantrell cannot be let off the hook, nor can the New Orleans City Council for this. I think that some of this, obviously, the responsibility falls on the perpetrator and anyone who helped the perpetrator orchestrate this. Obviously, I'm not absolving him of even a little bit of the guilt, but I do think that the people of New Orleans should ask, why was this street not secured that night? Why was such an easy thing overlooked?
Well, I know that this mayor has had all kind of controversy over the last couple of years, and I'm just shocked that New Orleans keeps voting in someone as incompetent as this mayor is. I mean, it is absurd. It is ridiculous. It is a shame to have someone as incompetent as her as your mayor. And so I don't know why New Orleans keeps voting her back in, but you're right. And that once again goes back to what we were talking about earlier and how we need to be involved and we need to be engaged. And that's why you need to get good mayors, good councilmen, good aldermen elected. If not, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have all kind of issues. Maybe not something as tragic as this with 15 people getting killed, over 40 people injured. You might not have something like this as tragic as this happened, but there's a lot of other things that can happen in our cities whenever the right people is not in leadership. You know, I will say this about one of the videos that I watched, and it was heroic. You know, whenever there was this, and I'm not even sure which store, you know, or place of business shot this video, but there was several police officers standing on this one corner, maybe 8 or 10 police officers on this one corner, and whenever the shots began, and whenever this truck began to come down Bourbon Street, and he got out of his truck and he started shooting. You see every one of these police officers running toward the sound of gunshots. Every single one of them running as fast as they could to get down as quick as they could. It's unbelievable. And there was 2 police officers that I saw that were injured. I'm not sure if it was one of them, but all of these police officers, they began to run as quick as they could to get there to stop this attack. That once again goes back to just how strong of a feeling that I have, you know, toward our police officers whenever it comes to respect and honor. Yes, there might be one bad apple out of 1,000, but the vast majority, 99% of our police officers are men and women who are willing to put their life on the line at a moment's notice. And we saw that, you know, with this terrorist attack. I mean, they ran as quick as they could to stop. And if they wasn't there, Reed, there would have been a lot more people that would have gotten killed. There would have been a lot more than just 15 if it hadn't been for these brave men and women that ran as quick as they could to get there to stop this shooter. Here's another picture, Reed, of this guy's truck, you know, running into that lift. And our prayers need to be with the people of New Orleans.
Well, I think it's important to criticize police officers who abuse the badge for any reason whatsoever. They abuse the law. That's obviously important, but it is at least as important to praise the authorities when they do something right. So I think that was good to include there, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to read this Read, this is from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk said, remember how Hamas attacked Israel, massacred 1,200 innocent civilians, and then the Muslim world rallied behind the murderers? America just suffered a jihadist attack. Dozens are dead and injured. And now a pro-Palestinian protest is blocking 6th Avenue in New York City, rallying behind the murderers. This perverse upside-down world only ends when we stop importing cultures that hate us and deport those already here who reject our values and embrace a backward culture of terrorism and death. Meanwhile, we need leadership that possesses the moral clarity to stop fighting useless foreign wars and instead preserve our way of life. And I like what Charlie said. He said January 20th can't come soon enough. And that protest, I'm going to show a video, read here in a moment, of that protest. And it was yesterday, I believe, that this protest happened. But Charlie Kirk is right on. I mean, he hit several key points here in this post that Charlie put out, and I agree with everything that he said, in this post, because he's right. We saw Israel get attacked by Hamas, over 1,200 innocent civilians killed, and many people injured, and the Muslim world, the Muslim countries rallied behind these murderers. And now, Reed, you have the exact same thing happening here. You have let me show you this. You have a pro-Palestinian protest, this was yesterday, that is blocking 6th Avenue in New York City. I mean, there you have it right there. I mean, they are protesting and they are rejoicing, that people were killed and that people were injured. Reed, I say deport every one of them. Every single one of these people that are here marching, listen, deport everyone. Whenever you're marching for death and you're marching for the death of American citizens, you deport every single one of them. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't see where I could possibly disagree with you on any of that. And Charlie Kirk, 9 times out of 10, I think that he gets it exactly right. And with this particular post, he really did just knock it out of the park. I mean, and of course, we all understand. We don't even have to acknowledge it, but I'm going to give a brief nod to it anyway. Obviously, it's not every single Muslim around the world doing this. Clearly not. We get so exhausted of having to say not all Muslims, but it was the vast majority of the Muslim world that came behind the perpetrators of the October 7th attacks last year. That's what Charlie Kirk is referring to. October 7th, 2023, that's whenever Hamas came over, many of them in paragliders, into Israel, close to the border there with Gaza, massacred, it's between 1,100 and 1,300 people there on the Israeli side, so about 1,200, just like Charlie Kirk just said. And then you get these idiots. I mean, I don't like calling people idiots, but what purpose could they have for gathering in the streets of New York City, like in support of Palestine, in support of basically the Hamas government, if we can even call it a government? What purpose could they have the day after someone radicalized by ISIS kills 15 people, injures dozens more in New Orleans, gather in a different American city, cause trouble right there where the cameras and everyone can see them? What kind of optics are they going for? I think you nailed it whenever it comes to the kind of optics those troublemakers are going for. They want to praise death. They want the death and destruction that this terrorist fiend, this absolute ghoul caused down in New Orleans. They support that. That is a clear and full-throated endorsement of it.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not all Muslims. All Muslims are not praising and chanting in the streets, death to America, like many do in Iran. I get it. And so I agree with that. Because just like not all Baptists, there are some Baptists that are bad. There are some Baptist preachers there that give a lot of Baptist preachers a bad rap, just to be honest with you. And so there are Catholic priests that give other Catholic priests a bad rap.
Yep.
And just like I don't say that every Jew is like Chuck Schumer, because Chuck Schumer is a bad, United States senator. And so you're right. But these people that are out marching in the street, they're bad apples, and every one of these suckers are to be deported.
Send them to Gaza.
If I was president right now, I'd deport every stinking one of them.
Yep.
Right back to Gaza, Iran. I don't care where you send them. And send them back, over, and let them march in the streets over there and chant over there. Because I agree with Charlie Kirk on this fact that this perverse upside-down world only ends when we stop importing cultures that hate us. These cultures hate America. They want to destroy America. They want to see America. They want to see America burn. Is what they want to see. They want to see America burn to the ground. That's why they can burn the flag and chant in the streets, "Death to America." And it's unbelievable at what some of these people are saying and doing right here in our nation. Deport every one of them, and then don't let these suckers back in. Stop them from coming into our country. You know, Reed, Charlie said at the beginning of this, he said January 20th can't come soon enough. And that's a fact. I mean, January 20th is fast approaching. January 20th is also a certain holiday, is it not?
I think so. Why don't you remind the audience what it is?
It's Martin Luther King Day.
Yep.
Is January the 20th. I don't think that there could not be a better day than Trump to be the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump, and Donald Trump to be sworn in there in the capital city of the United States of America in Washington, D.C. There can't be a better day, in my opinion, than January 20th for Donald Trump to be sworn in, and it can't get here quick enough. And we can stop a lot of this nonsense, a lot of this stuff that's happening, you know, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I mean, what is Joe Biden even doing? I mean, what is the FBI and some of the people that he has put in leadership? What are these people doing? It's unbelievable at what is happening. And Charlie Kirk is right. January 20th can't come soon enough. Reed, do you have plans to go to the inauguration?
I've actually thought about it. I have discussed possibly attending the inauguration with a few family friends, so that is TBD. Now, are you going to be there?
So my plan is to go, yes. But my dad's 40th anniversary is on the 19th, and so I'm preaching for him on that Sunday night. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get out of church on Sunday night, drive to Atlanta Sunday night, me and my son, drive to Atlanta, catch a plane from Atlanta to D.C. Monday morning, get there just in enough time to hopefully we have tickets, and so we should have a good spot. But just getting there in time is going to be it's going to be tough. And so, but we're going to do everything that we can, you know, to get there. And so are you going to get there before, are you going to go there on Sunday or Monday or travel? Or
like I said, it's still to be determined, but I'm not even sure that I will be going. But you know, if I am up there, I mean, I'll surely let you know. And, you know, maybe I know you don't drink or anything like that. I was going to say maybe we'll go get a whiskey or something like that. But no, we'll figure something out, you know.
Yeah,
You're a sweet tea kind of guy. And there's nothing wrong with that, sir.
I'm a sweet tea kind of guy, and I'm not sure how much sweet tea is in Washington, D.C. And maybe we can tell one of our congressmen, you know, to get some sweet tea up there, and maybe they'll have some sweet tea for us.
I lived in Washington, D.C. for 8 long, agonizing months, and I can tell you sweet tea is an alien thing to them. Which is funny because Washington, D.C. is actually considered a part of the American South, according to the Census Bureau. Did you know that?
I did not know
Maryland
that.
and Delaware are also considered a part of the American South, as well as Washington, D.C. So, according to the Census Bureau, the northern boundary of the American South is the Virginia and Pennsylvania border. Well, really, it's Maryland and Pennsylvania. That's actually the boundary that marks where the American South begins. Yeah, but Maryland and Delaware are not the South. You and I know that.
So according to Dan Carr, if your state does not offer sweet tea, you are not part of the South. I could give what the American census says.
According to Reed Cooley, if you're born north of Jackson, Mississippi, you're a Yankee.
Oh, man. You can't. I have friends that live in the northern part of the state. I don't believe that. That's all Reed Cooley. Maybe if you live in Memphis or north of Memphis, maybe then we can go with that.
I can compromise with that.
I have to be careful about what I say about north of Jackson. Maybe we could take Jackson and make it like part of California or something, you know, outside of the where the Capitol buildings are. But then, anyway, well, I hope that you're there. And, of course, I would love to maybe grab dinner, you know, if you're there. I've got some friends that I'm meeting there. And, of course, we get a lot of people going, you know, from the coast. And so we'll have a good time, you know, supporting President Donald Trump. And Charlie Clerk is right. I want to point out one of the things that Charlie said in his video. He said, and right there in that 1 to the third paragraph, he says, this perverse upside down world only ends when we stop importing cultures that hate us and deport those already here who reject our values and embrace backward culture of terrorism and death. I agree with what he's saying. He's saying, 1, quit letting them in. And then he's saying, 2, if you're not going to come here and obey our laws, then you need to go back. Listen, I'll take it a step further, Reed, and this probably will get me booed, banned, maybe. But if you're going to come here to America, you're to learn a language. And so you're to learn English. You know, I think it's important. If I was going to move to Mexico, or if I was going to move to, whatever country I was going to go to, Reed, I would learn their language.
I just have a quick question about that, Dan. What language was our Constitution written in?
Well, it's written in English.
Yeah, what language are our laws written in?
English.
If you're going to come here and become a naturalized citizen, isn't it your duty to learn our Constitution and our laws and to obey them?
Absolutely, I agree.
Seems learning English is a great way to expedite that process, does it not? Could really help facilitate that sort of process.
Yeah, and I think you ought to learn it. And so if I was going to go to Mexico, I would learn Spanish, right? If I was going to go to Russia, I would learn Russian.
I think you'd blend in a little better in Mexico.
Probably so. If I was going to go to China, I would learn Chinese. Listen, that's not a, some people say, well, you're prejudiced if you say that. No, that's not a prejudice thing. That's an American thing. I mean, if you're coming here, learn the laws, learn the Constitution, learn the language. The same way, if I was going to go to Russia, or if I was going to go, listen, I went to Ecuador for 10 days, right? 10 days. I was there on a mission trip. Read. Leading up to my trip to Ecuador, I spent many, many hours trying to learn certain words in Spanish. I tried to learn certain words to say hello, to say good morning, to say good evening, to say sweet tea. And so I was trying to learn, certain words in their language because I wanted them to know that listen, I'm here, I'm in Ecuador, I'm not going to be here long, but I want to learn as much as I can about your culture, and I want to learn your language as much as I can to show respect. And so that's part of that showing respect, you're coming here to live, you're coming here to move, you want to become a citizen here, learn the language. It's not that complicated, it's not that hard. But if you're not going to adhere to the rules and the laws of this land, then you need to go back. And go back to wherever you came from. And I can't wait for the new border gentleman that's going to be taking over the border.
Tom Homan.
He's going to send people back as quick as they've gotten here, and I can't wait. But I want to keep reading. He says, and deport those already here who reject our values and embrace a backward culture of terrorism and death. And then he says, meanwhile, we need leadership and that possesses the moral clarity to stop fighting useless foreign wars and instead preserve our way of life. Reed, I'm going to say another controversial statement, but America, the United States of America, and our military is not the policeman of the world. It's not the policeman of the world. And my pocketbook is not Ukraine or any other country's checkbook, to spend fighting wars in these other countries. And it is a shame that we are sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, and we have veterans. We have veterans right here in America that are living on the streets. We have veterans that can't even get the health care they need. And we're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. And I agree 100% with what Charlie's saying, that we need leadership, that's going to quit fighting foreign wars and quit sending our men and women to these countries, to shed their blood in other countries for causes that they were not sworn in to fight for. And so we need to bring our troops home, and we need to quit playing the world's police. I'm 100% opposed to playing the world's police.
Correct. And Ron Paul actually talked about this on stage back in 2008 during the old Republican debates. You might remember this. He said that, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said here, but the key lie that we're always told every time our government wants to launch a new stupid war in one of these Middle Eastern countries, is that we have to go over there to keep from fighting them over here. So we have to go over there because it's going to make us safer at home. But the truth has really been that every single one of these stupid, pointless wars we engage in the Middle East, the very same kind of war that the founding fathers, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and countless others, warned us against, these stupid, entangling alliances in foreign countries, they make us less safe at home. The more of them that we kill over there for whatever stupid reason we want to go into some foreign country, back some rebel group or back some current government, blah, 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 whatever stupid reason, we kill them, that makes them more resentful towards us over here. The CIA is very serious when they talk about this concept called blowback. I'm sure maybe you've heard that term before. The concept is very similar, and it's what I just alluded to. When you go into a foreign land and you you go there for militaristic or imperialistic or expansionistic reasons, right? You go there and you toy with their way of life. You're going to make them more resentful towards us to the extent that eventually, a few dozen or a few thousand or a few 100,000 of them are finally going to say, why don't we go give those Americans a taste of what their government's been putting us through? And then you wind up with some lunatic like this jackhole who just killed all these people in New Orleans. So, Charlie Kirk is absolutely right to conclude his post on X by going to the real core of the problem, which is our government makes us less safe through these stupid foreign wars. And there's absolutely a connection between these foreign wars our government's been involved in for 20 plus years in the Middle East and the fact that we have a spike in Islamic terrorism right here in the U.S.
I agree. And, whenever they say they're going to come here and fight us here, the only people that are going to come here and fight us are the people that are coming across our borders.
Yep.
It's not other countries. You really think Iraq is going to get here to America? Really? They don't even have, they couldn't get here if we had no military. If we had no military, and if they wanted to get here, they couldn't get here. Iraq does not have what it takes to get here. Iran does not have what it takes to get here. China barely does. And they would have to it would take them 40 years with their ships that they have. Russia, they could come and bomb with their planes in the northern part, but they would struggle even getting here. And so these countries that they're saying, we're going to fight over there so we don't have to fight them here, they ain't coming here. I know that's not good English, but they ain't coming. The only people that are coming they're coming across that southern border, and it's one or two of them that are getting in. Thousands of them, but one or two that have come in, and they'll kill people here, and they'll kill people here, and they'll rape this person here, and they'll cause all of this kind of havoc everywhere. Those are the people that are getting here. And so let's bring our troops home, and let's protect our border. And whenever you do that, you'll stop a lot of this useless nonsense from happening here in our country.
And if the election of Donald Trump was a mandate to do any one thing, it was a mandate to do exactly that, to get these violent migrant criminals, to get the third world out of the Western world, to get the third world out of our country, make our communities, our neighborhoods safe again, get these criminals out of here, and secure our friggin' border.
I agree. And Joe Biden's selling the border. He's selling the border wall is what he's doing. And thankfully the government came out, the judge came out and ruled that he can't continue to do that anymore. And so it's just unbelievable at what is happening with Joe Biden. Did you see
that there's that Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, has taken over that apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado again? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see it. Unbelievable.
And did you see that it was a couple of weeks ago, there was a Guatemalan migrant who set a woman on fire while she was still alive in the New York City subway.
I did see that.
This is the kind of chaos and just utter unthinkable Twilight Zone level insanity that the American people are absolutely sick and tired of. And it was a mandate from Americans right, left, and center. By re-electing Donald Trump to the White House, they want this over. Americans, hardworking Americans, don't want to feel every day that by sending their kids to school or by going down the street or by happening to pass through Bourbon Street or whatever else they're doing, that they might be killed by some crazy radicalized terrorist. And that's, if there is any legitimate concern at all, it is that legitimate concern. So, that's what Donald Trump's re-election was a mandate for. I'll tell you, I'm ready for it. I think Tom Homan, from what I can tell, really seems to have been a home run pick. He can't let us down. If Tom Homan lets us down, I don't know where we go from here.
And Reed, it goes back again. This little 3 words, your vote counts. And people, I think, are really starting to see and wake up and understand just how true that is. Could you imagine if Kamala Harris was president? Could you imagine if people said, my vote don't count, and they stayed at home and they didn't vote and Kamala Harris won? I'm so thankful that people went to the polls and people voted. And I think you're right. I think Tom's going to do a great job. I think he's going to clean it up. I think the southern borders are going to be great again, I think is what he is going to do.
Make the border great again?
Absolutely. Well, Reed, I have enjoyed God and Country. I just want to mention again, about New Orleans and about the people, that was affected there. Many died. We need to be praying for their families, and we need to keep their families in our prayers. I know one was right here from Gulfport. She, 18 years old, her life taken. And we need to be praying for them. We need to be praying for those that have been injured. We need to be praying that they have a fast recovery. We need to be praying that God will protect them and that they will get well quickly. We also need to be praying for our law enforcement. We need to keep them in our prayers, and that God will bless them, and that God will keep them safe. Reed, before we jump off, if there's anything else that you would like to add, sir?
No, sir. Dan, once again, this was a fantastic episode of God and Country, and I cannot wait to be here next week.
I'm looking forward to it. If you haven't already shared God and Country, whether it's on the Facebook page, whether it's on the YouTube channel, the Substack, whether it's on X, wherever it's at, if you can just do us a favor and just hit the share button for God and Country, because that helps us. It helps us get out our message. These social media platforms are not going to be very good, for us as far as conservatives, but whenever you share, it helps us. It helps get out our message. So once again, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great United States of America.